Now that we have accomplished a successful drawing of our object, whatever that may be, you have pressed slightly for your object because all said and done, we don't want to see any pencil marks when we finish this painting. Okay, so even if I did have a little bit on heavier pencil marks, I can come in with my eraser and just press lightly. Your eraser is not there just to fix any mistakes you might have made, but it is also a mark making tool as well in terms of drawing. But right now I'm just pressing very lightly with my eraser and lightening up anything that might be a little too dark, because once I layer the watercolor on it, it's going to be kind of locked in. All right, so I'm going to start with a wash. What a wash is, especially with watercolor, is the use of very transparent paint to accomplish an idea of where colors go. Okay, when I create this wash, I want to make sure I'm staying within the lines, especially in my sky, because I'm going to leave that completely white, just like I did for my sphere. And I'm going to keep that completely white, and then I am going to paint the ground. And I can get a little creative with the ground. I'm probably going to go with a more earthy feel, because I feel like this oiling can kind of has an earthy look to it, especially with it kind of rusting away and things like that. So I'm probably going to do like a darker brownish kind of color for my ground. I can use my entire palette, but remember that there is no white paint. So wherever you see white or highlights, especially on metallic objects really have those reflected sources. Wherever you see white or need to leave that lightness, remember that your paper is the white, just like you did here. Okay, another thing I'll mention again, but whenever you're painting something and you're going to paint something next to it, ensure the fact that it's wet or it's dry and it's not wet, so the colors don't bleed into one another. All right, so we always want to start with a bigger brush and work our way down to smaller. I've got a big kind of area within the triangle shape of my object, so I'm going to use my biggest brush to kind of fill all that space in. If you have something that is smaller, using your largest brush on that is probably not the wisest choice because it's a smaller object. So I'd probably transition to one of my smaller paintbrushes. But then when you start to add the value and you start to add all the details and you start to develop the opacity, then you can transition down to smaller brushes. Okay, so my majority color is going to be orange. So I'm going to come in here, and my oiling can, I would say, is more on kind of the reddish orange side. So we've already learned how to mix colors together with our color theory sheets. So what I'm going to do is create the red orange that I think is needed for my oiling can. It is still majority orange, but it's just got a slight hint of red in it. Once again, I never want to mix together my purest of colors. So I'm going to clean my brush off, grab a little bit of red with a clean brush, and I'm going to mix that into my orange. Okay, so now I'm achieving this kind of reddish orange color that I'm looking for. I'm going to add a little bit more water to it because I want to ensure the fact that it is on the transparent side. With watercolor, you really want to make sure you're eliminating all mistakes that you might run into. So I'm going to paint my oiling can going right up against the edge. Remember, you can twist, rotate your body, twist, rotate your paper, whatever is most comfortable for you to ensure that you're going right up against that edge. Okay, so now I'm just kind of coming in with really watered down paint and applying the areas of this reddish orange color that I have created. I have red on my palette and I have orange on my palette, but I don't have red orange, but I have the ability to make that red orange. Okay, if I wanted to tint that down a little bit darker or add some dark values to that, then I could use the complementary colors to develop that darkness. It doesn't always have to be with black. Black can sometimes flatten images. So if it were me, which I am going to do for my darker values on my red orange, I am going to use a blue green, because the complementary color of red is green and the complementary color of orange is blue. Okay, so I'm avoiding the areas where I see that silver metallic-y kind of scraping away of the orange paint. So I'm avoiding that kind of area there. Got a line that shoots straight down. You might not be able to see it, but I do have it drawn with pencil on there, so I know exactly where I do not want to paint. Getting right up against that edge for the base. Grab some more paint. I was running out a little bit. Okay, so now I just have a base coat of my red-orange for my oiling can. I can come in here, clean off my brush. I think the sticker is a little bit on the lighter side, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of yellow, grab the red-orange that I already had, but mix that with some yellow, and apply that color to the sticker. Now, when I was talking about using a smaller brush for different portions of your painting, even though it is just the wash, this is kind of what I mean right here in terms of the letters. So I want to make sure those letters are the same color as the label I just created. Now I've got a nice brush and I'm using a pointed edge brush. Okay, so you got that pointed edge brush right there. I'm going to come in with this smaller brush, avoid the area that I've already painted because I don't want to smear it. I'm going to come in with this brush and I'm still just laying down a wash just to understand where things belong. And it is going to go right inside all those letters that I drew out for the label. Taking my time, there's no rush. I'm going to ensure that we are getting it right. All right, so there you can see the label. Now there is a little bit of smeared paint on there. You can see that like kind of like right there. So I've drawn that on my paper and I'll go ahead and add that on top of where the white will be. Okay, so for the area top, it's kind of got this yellowish, brownish, copper, gold color to it. So in order to develop that, I'm going to grab a little bit of brown. I'm going to grab some yellow. Mix those together. And once again, never mixing the colors together on the cakes. And I'm just going to lay this color down first, and I can come in with my darker values and develop those a little further. So I've got my brown and yellow mixed. I went a little bit heavy on the yellow side just to start. Remember, the darker values overtake the lighter values, so you want to make sure that you are placing down lighter values first and can develop the darks after, just in case you need to, because if you start with dark, then you are going to lose all of the ability to lighten it up. Right now I'm focusing on where those darker values are, avoiding the lighter areas for now, where the highlights are located. These are cylinders, so they're creating that round shape. We can't see that right now because we don't have our lights and darks developed quite yet, but I promise you we will get there and make them three-dimensional around, just like our sphere. But once again, you guys are all painting something different, so you just have to pay attention to what your object looks like and how you can utilize the knowledge that you've obtained to develop a three-dimensional realistic image through the use of color, highlights, shadows, textures, things like that. Okay, so my nozzle here too is also this gold color. Paying attention to where the lighter values are located, only focusing on adding a little bit of deeper values where I see darker areas. It's a deep value right down the center. Okay, right down the center of my little spout. Once again, I'm being able to envision it from my point of view. You guys obviously see it top down right now, but I can take a photograph of it and upload it to the website to showcase what exactly I'm seeing so you can have a good understanding as well. All right, clean my brush off. Maybe grab a little bit bigger brush to add the areas that have been kind of scratched away where I see the silver. I don't have any white paint, so I got to be very cautious and develop a very light layer with my black to almost get a gray color, because then the black and the white of the paper will mix together to develop that gray. So I'm going to come in. Notice how I moved away from the orange itself, because while the orange was wet, I didn't want to go in with my gray right up next to it, because then the gray or the black paint would bleed with the orange. So I'm keeping the integrity of the edge, because there is that hard edge right there. There's a definite separation between the orange and the silver, and they're not just bleeding together. So I'm kind of picking and choosing where I'm working so I know that things have the integrity of not bleeding together and keeping that edge. Grab some more paint. Make sure it's nice and watered down, especially since I need that silvery kind of color. I will further develop the darks after we just have our wash placed. Okay. More dark down here. All right, I know that my orange is dry now, so I feel comfortable moving on to the background. Once again, I said I wanted kind of like an earthy, brownish gray, I guess, if you will. So I'm going to grab some brown. I'm just going to grab that black that I have next to it, because that's a lot of black, and I don't need any more than that for right now, I don't think. Okay, make sure it's nice and watered down. I need to keep the integrity of my object. I don't want this brown to go into the orange, so make sure you are being very cautious of that, going right up against the horizon line and kind of fading that out. You don't have to take the color all the way down, just like we did here. You can start with opaque and fade it out if you want to. If you want to be more artsy and have fun with it, you could do something along the lines of this, where you kind of fade it out and have a more artsy kind of look to it. It is all up to you. I want you guys to have fun with this project. I want you guys to do something that you enjoy and are able to accomplish something successful, and then you are going to be proud of it. Okay, so I'm going to have a lot of water going on here so those values can blend into one another successfully. Grab some more paint. Use the water that's already on the paper to spread that out. Go right up against the base of my object. Eventually I'm going to figure out where the shadow is located after I lay down this base coat. It's okay to lay down the base coat and then the shadow on top of it, because the shadow is the color of the ground, and we'll just make a darker version of that ground color. So once again, it's okay to layer the shadow on top of the ground, just like green grass is still green, even though a shadow from a tree might be on top of it. It's just a darker green. So my shadow will always be this brown color, because the ground is brown. It's just going to be a darker version of that brown. Okay. Come in with more water so I can work what's already on the paper, as well as grab some more paint from my palette, making sure everything's kind of blended together. I'm using my biggest brush because there's a lot of surface area to cover. It would take me forever to paint this background if I'm using my smaller brush like this. So understand the brushes you have, when best to use them, and just go from there and have fun painting. Get right up against the edge of that. If you need to flip your paper around so you can utilize the comfortability of making sure you're not going to make a mistake, do what you need to do. But for me, with recording this video, I'm just going to keep my paper there and give it my best effort, and hopefully I am successful, which I think I was. Okay, grab some more water, just a touch of that color, and now we're going to fade it out into the paper with quite a bit of water, but not too much where we start to rip our paper. We want to make sure we keep the integrity of our paper. Things are blending together. Kind of have to work quick because when watercolor dries, it will dry with exactly what it looks like, and it'll be a little difficult to start to blend that out. So you want to make sure you're working quick. Right now I really only have water on my brush and just using the color that is on the paper itself and smoothing that out. Once again, not overworking what I have, because if I do, it will start to rip the paper. And we do not want that. Utilize the skills you've learned from your value color, from going transparent to opaque. Utilize the understanding of mixing colors together with intermediate tertiary colors, or whatever colors you're mixing for that matter, to obtain the color you need for your object. And then finally, understand complementary colors to develop darkness. I'm going to definitely use complementary colors on my oiling can when the time comes next video, because sometimes black can flatten an image and we want these to be realistic and as three-dimensional as possible. All right, so I think that is going to be it for my first layer. I've developed my background first layer. I've developed the first layer of my object. I've selected colors and color placement and where they belong. I never lost the integrity of my original colors there, and whenever I needed to mix them, I mixed them in the top palette without mixing them together in there, because then your next painting, you might need a pure red, and if you ruin that by mixing another color into it, you're going to lose that ability to have the pure red. Leaving my sky nice and clean and white. And there you have it. First layer is complete.